Man, so like I said, we last week, I know we've already celebrated, had our biggest night ever, which was so cool. And man, we are just believing, and I'm just praying. My prayer is that next week we break 500. Okay, that is 100%. I believe that we can do it, and man, I'm super excited about it. Now, let's talk for a moment. Okay, I need you to be honest with me. All right, how many of you all say that I have a country accent? Put your hands up. Okay, how many of you would say, no, he doesn't have a country accent at all? A couple of bold people in the room. That's good. That's good. All right. Now, here's the deal. I have family in Los Angeles, and like when I go to LA and when I go to see them, like they have no they can't understand me at all. Like not a bit. I mean, it is, I'm completely country to them. And so if you don't think I'm country, they 100% like can't understand me at all. Like you walk up there and you say yuns, and they're like, yuns? Like, did you say guns? Like, no, yuns, okay? Like yuns and your family. You know what I'm saying? Like, now, here's the thing. When I moved to Blount County, okay, now, I'm from Knoxville, and I'm from Knox County, and Knoxville is we're still in Tennessee. It's all hillbilly country, okay? But when I moved to Blount County, everybody said, oh, yeah, you'll be out there a couple months. You're going to be driving a truck. And I said, ain't no way I'm driving a truck, okay? I like my SUV. I like my little Sentra, okay? It's a stick shift. It has great MPG, okay? Get a lot of miles. I drive a Prius, okay? There's no way I'm going to drive a truck. Well, I have a GMC red truck in the parking lot now, okay? It has no AC. I'm full-on country boy in that truck. It's got a little lean to it, okay? It's got the pimp limp with it, okay? So, it just happened. I mean, and so here, I didn't want to be like just everybody else, okay? I said I wasn't, because how many of y'all Enneagram people? Okay, anybody Enneagram? Okay, so there's certain people who really like to be individuals, okay? They don't want to be labeled as basic. They don't want to be just like everybody else. Like they are individuals, okay? Now, that's me. And so I didn't want to be like everybody else, but you spend enough time around somebody, you spend enough time with a certain type of people, and guess what? You kind of start to look and talk like this. And so I didn't really want to be basic. I want to be me. I want to be an individual. And I think that's something that most of us in the room want as well, right? Like none of y'all are like, man, I just want to be just like everybody else. Like I know this generation of students. If there's one thing I know, it's this generation of students. It's what I've given my life to. And I know that this generation of students, you don't want to be put in a box, do you? You don't want to be saying, oh, you're just so basic. You're just like everyone else. Like you are prototypical this person. No, you want to be an individual. You want to be like you. Nobody puts in their like Instagram bio, basic white girl. Nobody does that, right? Like basic Maryville preppy kid, okay? Like nobody does that. Like because why? You want to be an individual. You want to be you. You want to act like you. And here's my point, okay? No one wants to be basic. No one wants to be just like everyone else. But no one wants to be basic, but that's almost impossible. And I hate to break it to you, okay? And you know this, but we just don't like to hear it a lot. I hate to break it to you, but Maryville kids, have a look. And so do William Blount kids. And so do Alcoa kids. And so do homeschool kids. We just don't see them because they're at home, okay? I love you. If you're at homeschool, you belong here. I'm just messing. But it's almost impossible. Why? Because when you get around people, you start to kind of talk like them. You start to look like them. You kind of all grow and look kind of the same as you grow up together. And you're like, no, I'm different, y'all. I listen to indie music, like alternative. I wear flowy dresses and headbands and shop at Anthropology. Like I'm different, y'all. We call you a basic hipster, okay? All right. So no matter where you're at, it's just the people you're around and the people you start to run with. you start to look like. Now, no one wants to be basic, but that's almost impossible. I didn't say it is impossible. I'm just saying it's really hard. But no one wants to be impossible that's almost impossible because we often become like the culture that we are in. If I hang around people with an accent, for some reason, I start to talk like them. If I, my wife laughed. I could hear that from anywhere. If I start to hang around people who love NBA, I start to pay attention to NBA a little bit more, right? Because you start to act like and look like and dress like and talk like the culture that you're in. Now, that can be, but it could also be a good thing, right? Because if you put yourself in a culture that wants to become more like Jesus, you start to become more like Jesus too. And so, while it's almost impossible, sure, it can be a good thing. Now, as we all know, it can also be a bad thing. And so there's a church in Philippi, and around Jesus' time, he's dead, and he rose again. He came back to life, and if you're not with that yet, we can talk about that later. But right now, we're going to talk about a church in Philippi, okay? So there's this church in Philippi, and there were some people, and there was kind of some different cultures, and we'll break down what those cultures were. And they were kind of all warring against each other. And so Paul is this guy, and he was a Jew. And Paul, being Jewish, he hated Christians. Now, Paul was, in our day, we would call him a terrorist because he terrorized a religious group. He committed hate crimes. And so, as a terrorist, he would go around and kill Christians because he thought that they were not following the law and following the one true God. And so he does this, and he terrorizes all these people. Well, he has this life-changing experience. He meets Jesus on a road called the Damascus Road. His whole life's changed, and now he went from killing church people to planning and starting up new churches. And one of the churches that he started, really kind of ended up starting this church in Philippi. And so he's writing a letter because he couldn't go to them very easily. So he's writing them a letter encouraging them not to fall in to the wrong culture. And so if you have your Bibles, I want you to turn with me to Philippians 3. And so as you're turning there, there's some different cultures that are happening here in Philippi. Now, there are these one people, they're called the Judaizers, okay? Now, the Judaizer culture, they followed the Jewish law. And they believed that Christians needed to follow the Jewish law in order to be a Christian as well. They didn't believe in just Jesus alone. They said, yes, Jesus plus you need to follow all of our laws. So you had to eat certain things, you had to be circumcised as a child, you had to do all these different rituals and traditions in order to follow the law if you were going to get into heaven. So these Judaizers, they said their culture was you need to follow the Jewish law. Now there was another culture in Philippi as well, and these were the unbelievers. They didn't believe, so they said, you know what? If you want to follow the Roman gods, go ahead. If you want to follow the Christian gods, go ahead. If you want to follow the Jewish gods, go ahead. Really, you can do whatever the heck you want. It doesn't matter. So you just do whatever. So you kind of get the Judaizers say you got to follow the law to every single point. Then you have the unbelievers, the pagans, they're like, you want to worship whatever you want to worship, go ahead. And then we have a different culture, which is the kingdom culture. And these are people like Paul, people who are Christians, who believe that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And they say, the only person you need to follow at the end of the day is King Jesus. And so you have these warring cultures that are happening. And so Paul, he writes to the church in Philippi, and he says this. And it's going to be in Philippians 3, chapter 7, or verse 17. If you don't have a Bible, I encourage you to download the Bible app, or if you want a in-hand Bible, which and you don't have one, you don't have the money to buy it, come see me, come see one of the small group leaders. We will hook you up with a Bible. But here's what it says in Philippians chapter 3, verse 17. It says, brothers. Now, let's stop here for a second. Is he talking to singular or plural here? Plural. So he's talking to a community of people. He says, brothers, join in imitating Christ. Does he say that? No. He says, join in imitating God. Does he say that? No. Join me in imitating the law. Does he say that? No. He says, join in imitating me. Now, this could be a little odd to us. He's like, all right, Paul, what are you, perfect, like conceited? What? Okay, let's come back to it. And he says, and keep your eyes on those who walk is he talking about singular or plural here? Plural. Multiple people. Those who walk according to the example you have in us. So we can rephrase this and say, keep your eyes on me and keep your eyes on those who walk like Jesus. Now, it's interesting here that what Paul does say and what he does not say. He does not say, follow God, follow Jesus. He says, follow me. And here's a point you need to know. That sometimes people have to follow you before they follow Jesus. That's why we talk about using your social media just to make an influence for the world or make an impact on the world. Because people follow you. And sometimes they need to follow you first and see how the way you live in your life and how you treat other people and how you date and how you talk about people when they're not around before they'll ever follow Jesus. And so he's saying this. He's saying, listen, you may not know and you may not have seen Jesus, and we don't really have a whole 66-book Bible yet because we're still in the early church. But listen, if you want to know what Jesus looks like, follow me because I'm going to be following him. Does that make sense? That's what Paul's saying here. So he goes on and he says this. He says, verse 18, for many of whom I've often told you, even now with tears. So he's like, man, there's people, and it breaks my heart, who walk as enemies of the cross. He's talking about the Judaizers. He's talking about the unbelievers. They're enemies of Jesus. And he says their end is destruction, so it's not going to go well for them. And he says their God is their belly. I like that term, right? It's like, get in my belly, all right? When he says that, what he's saying here, he's like, there's people who, when they eat, whatever they feel, whatever they want to do, they do it. Their God is their belly. So whatever, they follow the whatever culture. And their glory is in their shame, and with their minds, they are set on what? Say it out loud. Earthly things. So he's saying there's a culture that's following Jesus. And there's a culture who are enemies, who their end is destruction, and they do whatever they want, and they set their mind on earthly things. So he's kind of showing that there's a warring culture. And Paul is saying, listen, do not, it breaks my heart, do not follow them. It's not going to be good for them. Because they're enemies of the cross. They're enemies of King Jesus. And their end is destruction. And he says that their God is their belly, meaning that they worship themselves, not the king. And they don't set their minds on the culture of heaven, but they set their minds on the culture of earth. And he says this in the next verse. And I love the first part. He says, but our citizenship is in heaven. How many of you all have parents who say, I do not care? Somebody's like, yeah, I have parents. How many of y'all have parents who say, I don't care what they let their kids do? Everybody's like, yep, I get that every weekend, okay? All right? This is what Paul's saying. He's like, listen, I don't care what they do. I don't care what they set their minds on. I don't care if they follow the Judaizers. I don't care if they follow whatever they want. As for us as Christians, our citizenship is not of earth. Listen, I don't care how patriotic you are, your citizenship is not in America. Your citizenship is in the kingdom of heaven first. So what Paul is reminding them, he's saying, listen, you are not from around here. You're not of this world. Listen, guys, you are not of this world. That's what he's saying. He said, you're not from around here. He says in verse 20, but our citizenship is in heaven, and from it we await a Savior, the Lord Jesus Christ. We await a King. We await heaven coming back down to earth once and for all. That's who we are. So if you see, there's two warring cultures here. There's really all kinds of different warring cultures here, but there's the culture of heaven and the culture of earth. And he says, we are citizens of the kingdom, not earth. And Paul wants him to do what with it? Well, let's go back to verse 17. What's he say? He says, brothers, join in imitating me. Now, come here, Brice. I'm going to call you up on stage. He's already committed to Pellissippi State. I don't know if you know this, but come here. So, if I'm going to imitate Brice for a moment, let's turn and face the crowd, okay? I got to make my neck a lot longer, okay? I'm going to have to get some shorts. I'm going to have to get a lot taller, okay? That's the biggest thing here, okay? I'm not going to have to get any better looking. I got you on that one, so that's good. I'm going to have to talk like this, okay, because this is how Brice talks, all right? Ultimately, if I'm going to imitate Brice, I'm going to have to become a pitcher for the William Blount Govs. Pellissippi State. William Blount University, all right? I'm going to have to change a whole lot of who I am in order to be Brice, right? So you can have a seat. Give it up for Brice. So excited for what the Lord's doing in your life to lead you to the Pellissippi State. So if I'm going to imitate God, if I'm going to imitate Him, I have to change who I am, right? That's what imitate means. We change. So what Paul is saying, he's saying, listen, you have to change your life, the way you live, what you do, what you value, the way you talk, the way you dress, in order to look more like heaven and less like earth. That's what he's calling them to do. And the same thing that he was calling the people of Philippi to do is what he is calling you and I to do right here in our schools, right here in Blount County, right here at wherever you are. Now, you and I, we have to change. And if we're going to accomplish the mission that we really believe that God has for this ministry, and what God has for you in this community, you and I have to change in so many different ways. And I'm not just talking about you all, I'm talking about me. We have to continually change to be more like heaven and less like earth. So let me remind you what we believe God has called us to do. As of January 1, 2019, we launched a new campaign that we're calling the Kingdom Campaign. And our goal is we want to see one guy's small group and one girl's small group in every school for every grade. That's 88 small groups. Now, I'll be honest, that's a crazy vision. That's a crazy mission. That's a crazy, lofty goal that in our own strength, it will never happen. And if you tell somebody, yeah, we're going to put 88 small groups out there and we're going to take over every school and we're going to see God change our whole county. Everybody like, you're ridiculous. There's no way. No student ministry's ever done that. That's just a little church in Foothills Church in Little Blount County. What? But this is what I believe that God's called us to do. That we as kingdom people, we get to bring heaven to homeroom. We get to bring heaven to high school football games. We get to bring heaven to hallways. We get to bring heaven to hectic school lunches. We get to bring heaven wherever we go. We get to bring the kingdom wherever we go, because the kingdom of God, as we said last week, is right here in the midst of us. And I believe if we all lean in, we're not just going to break 500, because who really cares if we break 500 if people aren't having their lives changed in community? Because we're not a crowd, we're a community. And so we want to see God literally change your schools through groups of you all. And I believe if we all did it, sure, it might sound crazy. But man, your generation and the generations before you have done some pretty crazy things that's changed the world. And I believe that we can do it, but we can't accomplish that mission unless we are willing to change. We have to. And so over the next 3 weeks, myself and Pastor Alex, we're going to kind of open up what it means to be this community we call FC students. And so tonight, we're going to talk about the first thing, and we're going to talk about two different things over the next 2 weeks. But tonight, the first thing is this. Here's our bottom line, is that as FC students, we need and we are a community being changed by King Jesus. That's our first cultural value. We are a community being changed by King Jesus. See, you and I have to be that community, a community that is modeling a kingdom culture. Not the culture of earth, because I get it, there's no Judaizers here. There's not a ton of pagans like there were in Philippi. But there are plenty of cultures fighting for your attention. Here's the first one that's really fighting for your attention, the high school culture. I get it. High school's fun. Man, high school is some of the best days of your life. Do not miss it, y'all. It's so fun. But the high school culture, as great as it is, often says follow your friends. And if you got good friends, that's not a bad thing always. But if you got most high school friends, it's just, well, do whatever they do. if they say this, and they talk like this, they go there, they smoke this, they do that. You do that because you follow them. You got to be popular. And it's just a high school culture. So that's a culture that's warring after your heart. Another culture is just the whatever culture. Okay. Now, how many of you would say it's okay? You don't have to be ashamed of this. But how many say I'm just kind of lazy? Okay. Like I like to sleep. All right. Okay. That's cool. That's cool. All right. Glad you're awake in here. All right. But it's fine to be a little lazy, sleeping in high school. But it's not okay to be lazy in your faith. Because when we get lazy in our faith, we just kind of do whatever. Today I'll do this, tomorrow I'll do that. It's just kind of whatever I'm feeling like. It's kind of what Paul said, that God is their belly. They just kind of do whatever. The whatever culture is often warring for your faith to just do whatever you want. And then there is the kingdom culture. Follow King Jesus. Because more often than not, we are being changed by the first two cultures rather than the culture of King Jesus. Because if you're being changed by the high school culture, you start doing whatever your friends do. If you're being changed by the whatever culture, you start doing just whatever you want. If you're being changed by the kingdom culture, you start to do whatever the king wants you to do. And remember what culture you're a part of, as he says in verse 20. But our citizenship is where? In heaven. It's in the kingdom. That's who we are. Now, have you ever met somebody who you can just tell that they're not from around here? Okay? Like I know this guy, he is a Chinese Australian who lives in the backwoods of South Carolina. You think when that bro walks up to a Walmart, they know that he's not from around here? I would think so. Now, let's go back to my family in Los Angeles, okay? One of the places I love to go when I'm in Los Angeles is I love to drive through Beverly Hills, the big tall palm trees, and then you can go and there's just some amazing restaurants out on the sidewalk. So, one place that we went was one of the nicest places in Beverly Hills. And what if my family was there and they were waiting for me for dinner? And it's nighttime and I'm rolling up and when you drive through Beverly Hills, like it's some sweet cars. People are rolling in Bentleys. Like it is like just amazing things. And as I was driving through there this past year, I was like, dude, if I wreck, I'm just sell my body and I'm gone. Okay, just chop me up. I'm gonna have to pay for this somehow because it's just not gonna work. Like it's very intimidating to drive because everything's so expensive and it's so nice and everybody's so rich. And so what if I roll up to meet my family? And I roll up in the GMC red truck with no AC with the pimp limp. And I roll through there, and I look at my family, and I say, how you and my family doing? And ain't it a pretty night, y'all? I mean, you bet your sweet bottom I got a hankering for some Spam and some Vienna sausages. You think they'd know I wasn't from around here if I rolled up looking like that? Yeah. Because people who are not from around here, they talk different, right? People who are not from around here talk different. People who are not from around here, they walk different. People who are not from around here, they dress different. People who are not from around here value different things. And listen to me, Christians. You are not from around here. You have been called by God to talk a little bit different. A lot different. With the gossip and the cussing and just the way that we talk about girls, guys, the way we do that, guys. We talk different. See, you and I as Christians, we're called to not walk like everyone else. We don't go the same places that everyone goes. We don't do the same activities that everybody does. We don't date the same way that everybody dates. Because we talk and we walk different. We dress different. We don't dress just to show off our bodies and to show off skin and to make people want us. We dress different. And we value different things as Christians. Sports are not our God. Band is not our God. Dance is not our God. Band is not our God because we value different things. Why? Because we're not from around here anymore. So I want us to, tonight, as we start to wrap up here, just to do a heart check for a moment. Let me just ask you this. Ask yourself, when people look at me, do they know that I'm not from around here? Or do I look and talk and dress like everyone else? I want you to ask yourself that for a second. Be honest. Because I'd say for most Christians in high school, that's pretty difficult. In other words, does your life right now look more like the culture of heaven or the culture of earth? And you may say, well Pastor Landon, I get that. And if I'm honest, it probably does look more like earth than heaven. And I'd like to do something different. Well, remember what Paul says. He says this in verse 17. Brothers, join in imitating me and keep your eyes on those who walk. He's saying that you need to surround yourself with people that you can look to. Because I get it, like in high school, following Jesus is not easy. It's going to cost you a lot. If you're just here because you think it's cool to be a Christian, it's not. Sure, it's maybe easier in the South and easier at church, but it's not. It's not easy. You have to surround yourself with those walking in the same direction. Those who are pursuing Jesus, who are trying to change their lives too. Paul says, listen, you're not going to be perfect. You're not going to act like Jesus, but here's what you can do. You can put yourself around those who are walking like him. So let me challenge you to do something tonight. And it's the same challenge, essentially, as we challenged last week. I want to challenge you to commit to a small group and change together with them. Have you ever tried to change a habit in your life without encouragement? You ever tried to get in shape without a training partner? Or a personal trainer? It's hard. You need encouragement. You need accountability. You need a backup because you can't change from looking like heaven or from looking like earth to looking like heaven alone. But when we do this, when we put ourselves around those who walk like Jesus, those who are trying to talk like Jesus, you begin to change as well. Because when you invest your lives in a community, it's not just you who change. It's the people around you who change too. Let me just talk here for a moment. Because there's nothing more selfish, and I'll just be real with you all. There's nothing more selfish than you could do as a Christian than not being a small group. Let me tell you why. Because when you go to small group and when you invest your life into a community, I'm not talking about just like Sunday school type stuff, like you show up and do Bible trivia and you go home. You just answer the questions. Jesus, got it. God, got it. Holy Spirit, A+, let's get out of here. I'm talking about you invest your life into a community. Not only does it change your life, when you really lean into it, it begins to change the other people in the group's lives as well. And when you change and your friends in your school who are in your small group begin to change, people start to notice in your school that you are not from around here and that there's something different about you and there's something that they want to be like, and it's not really you because it's you following Jesus. And people sometimes have to follow you before they'll ever follow Jesus. So there's nothing more selfish than you can do as a Christian than to show up here every week and not be in a small group. Listen, this world needs Jesus. Your school needs Jesus. But they need to see Jesus in you first. And that will not happen until you're invested with those who walk. So I'm going to challenge you tonight to sign up for a small group, to come see me, to come see Pastor Alex, to come see one of our small group leaders and just tell an adult, or go to the TVs out there and say Connect Center and just say, hey, I want to get in a small group and I'm ready to go. Let's do this. And watch the way your school begins to change. I love a story. I didn't plan on sharing this at all, but I love to see what's happening in our 10th grade guys group. There's a whole group of boys here who their lives have been changed, and their friends' lives changed, and their parents' lives have changed, and their small group's blowing up. There was a time when I walked into Maryville High School 4 years ago and I didn't know anybody. And now I know everybody. Because God's doing a work. Man, one small group for every grade and every school. For guys and girls. Seems impossible. But not if you're invested. So I'm going to get off the stage. I'm going to pray. We're going to sing. And I want you to remember that this world needs Jesus. But they need to see him in you, in your group first. Let's pray.